Ethics and transparency have become central conversations in the jewelry world, yet, much like sustainability, they are terms that can be interpreted in many different ways. Behind the labels, however, are makers who are driving real, tangible change. Jewelers who choose to work with responsibly sourced materials, who advocate for mining communities, and who push for a supply chain grounded in respect, fairness, and environmental care. These are the people modeling a reshaped industry, changing it from the inside out. One of those jewelers is Saskia Schutt, whose practice is firmly rooted in ethical making. As a Fairmined licensed brand, Saskia works directly with gold that supports artisanal miners and ensures traceable positive impact. Her advocacy extends beyond her own bench through her contributions to groups such as Ethical Metalsmiths, Truly Precious, and her involvement with organizations like Diamonds for Peace. She continually champions a more equitable and transparent future for the subject. To explore her journey, her commitment to ethical materials, and the growing movement of jewelers pushing for systemic change, I'm delighted to welcome Saskia to the BAJ podcast. Welcome, Saskia.
Hi, well, thank you very much for having me.
To start, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and what it is that you do?
Okay, well, 27 years ago, I set up a jewelry business in the Oxo Tower in London with the complete mind of, I just want to make jewelry. And that's how it all started, and that's where it grew. And it was once I moved from London to Eastbourne, where I saw that there are so many more jewelers, and the networks that I had down in the southeast of England were very much more aware of their surroundings, of nature. And so I very quickly started looking at making my, I don't know, like my ultrasonic. I stopped using the chemicals and I started using organic washing up liquid and just little things like that. I started changing in my workshop. Yeah, because I think in a big city at the time, people are less aware. Whereas if you're living in the countryside and you're very much more in touch with nature, it does influence you. It does kind of make you look at things differently. And then in 2009, I missed Brussels, which is my hometown, which is where I was born. And I upped sticks and moved back. And I started my career all over again because I didn't know the market at all in Belgium. But it's amazing how the British are very, very loyal to their craftsmen. So I did take a lot of my customers with me, and they still stayed in contact. They still ordered things through me, which unfortunately stopped with Brexit. Brexit really did make things very, very difficult for everybody in both directions, which is a shame. But yeah, that's the way it is. And I built up a customer base in Europe now. I used to work in collections and make pieces. I never really worked B2B. I tried that in my first 2 years of business, but it wasn't my thing. It was an interesting experience and I learned a lot from it. And in the end, I preferred doing B2C. I love the human contact. I love the stories. And you miss that as a B2B jeweler. I feel really honored as well because I get to keyhole moment or an open window moment where I get to travel a journey of a couple's life or a person's life for a couple of months during the building and the creation of bespoke jewelry.
Maybe going even back further, what made you decide to become a jeweler? What was the pull of the subject? And perhaps how did you gain the skills you needed to make the jewelry the way you wanted to make it?
Yeah, it was very much from as a child. I used to help my dad do painting and decorating, and I was always busy building things and putting things together and helping my dad. I loved the fact that I could use tools and it was really exciting for me. And by the age of 15, I went to art school in Brussels, where I was doing graphic designs, everything that had to do with printmaking, photography. And my favorite part was the etching department. I got to work with metal. Okay, it was zinc, big zinc plates. But very quickly I started cutting them apart and making puzzles and so doing printmaking with puzzle pieces. So again, I was playing with the metal and I was deconstructing and reconstructing the metal in 2D form. And then I went and did my foundation course in Cambridge Regional College in the UK because I wanted to get to know my dad's country because my dad's British, my mom's Belgian. And so I went to Cambridge Regional College, which where they did the first term was nothing but 2 week blocks of different disciplines. And of course, I was the first block I enrolled in was the graphics department. And actually, it was two-dimensional for me. I was ornament, too 3D, and I loved the 3D department. I had a long discussion with my parents about the fact that I preferred to do 3D and specializing in jewelry, and they said, go for it. And so they supported my decision, and I then applied to the Scottish colleges and I did my degree in jewelry and metalwork at Duncan of Jordanstone College of Art at Dundee University. And then I went off to do my master's in South Africa at Stellenbosch University. So again, that was in jewelry design, but under the fine art department. So it was very conceptual. When I arrived, the first years had an exhibition where they had made jewelry out of fruit and vegetables. And they photographed the process of how the jewelry was decaying, how long the decay took, and all the steps through the funguses that arrived on these fruits and vegetables and everything that was made with it. So yeah, that was an interesting experiment, and that's how it grew. I didn't finish my master's. I left early because it was a 2 year master degree course, but it was still very much just after apartheid was lifted. So the country was still very much in turmoil, in a lot of pain. And so there was still a lot of violence and, yeah, conflict between races. And so it was too tough for me and I didn't stick it out. So I came back, moved to London and set up my business in the Oxo Tower in 99.
And then, Saskia, you set up your own business. Was that a decision that came natural to you to sort of because running a business is something in addition to creativity, it requires an awful lot of additional skills. Can I ask you sort of what was the pull to be self-employed, or was that kind of the only way?
I actually didn't consider it. I wanted to make jewelry. I knew I wanted to make jewelry, and I very quickly found bar work in the evening, and I found a workshop in the Oxo Tower with Karen Gledhill, who was pregnant at the time with her second baby, and she was looking for possibilities so she could have a bit more leeway, and I couldn't afford two rents. So we came into an agreement where I had free workshop space in return for keeping her shop open. So I was in her little boutique, which was a workshop boutique set up in the Oxo Tower with the view over the River Thames. Yeah, so that was a really lovely experience. It was a nice, win-win situation for both of us. I was able to set up my jewelry business. I made my very first collection within 6 months of being in the Oxo Tower in her workshop. And I knew I was going to have to do something to generate an income. I wanted to sell my jewelry. But I didn't think of myself as a businesswoman at the time. And I was stood in the post office to send a letter home. I was in a long queue and saw this little booklet saying how to become self-employed. And by the time I reached the front desk to send my letter, I had read the book. It was only 25 pages long. It was probably A5 sized. I filled out the application for my national insurance number and I sent it off at the same time as I sent my letter to home. And that was it. 6 weeks later, I was self-employed and I didn't really look back. I learned as I grew. I also got some sponsorship to write a business plan, Princess Trust. So the Princess Trust were a very amazing tool to have for young people under the age of 30 to help become self-employed. I didn't use any of the grants or any any of those tools, but it did give me a bit of insight of how I could run a business and how it, crafts are supported. There was also the Crafts Council. I was in and out using quite a lot of their resources. And that's kind of, I learned as I went along. I never did business studies. Yes, we did business studies as an add-on to my degree. It was part of the degree, but really commercial business studies and marketing, and that was something that was not really in my vision. It just grew. And then I had a friend who was she was in public relations in television in Belgium. And for my birthday, she went, Saskia, I've built you a website. And so she basically built me a really basic website. And then once I moved to Eastbourne in 2001, I met some jewelers and very creative group, Alexis Dove and Annika Rutlin, Anna Luca. They were all part of the group that the ethical metalsmiths. We had a group and we met up once a month and we would share ideas and or just let off some steam about the industry, about what we were doing, sharing techniques. It was a really nice thing. So yeah, I guess that's how I got started, and I learned to be an independent jeweler and a businesswoman along the way.
Sustainability and ethical making do sit at the core of your practice, I would say. May I ask, why did this become central to you? Was it always sort of from the beginning something you considered? And how has your understanding as well of sort of what are ethics, what are ethical materials and ethical practice, and how that has that understanding evolved over time?
I think at the heart of it, it was always there. I always struggled with my industry. I loved what I did, and it was always very difficult. I very quickly, in 2001, started doing remodeling because then I knew it didn't involve mining. The pieces had already been mined. It was also very much the sentimental value because customers were like, well, it's inherited from my grandparents, from my great grandparents. I have stories where even one ring, which I didn't remodel because I didn't want to, because the grandmother escaped Germany. She was Jewish and she fled to Ireland and she was put in with an Irish family who then brought her up. She lost her family in Germany. So, so that was something that her granddaughter was telling me. So, yeah, so that was something which was really special. So, those things, those stories, it's the sentimental value which go along with the remodeling. And although I love remodeling, I didn't think it does anything neither for our planet nor for our miners who mostly live and work in very remote areas where mining is one of the few things that is an option to them. And so by the time I was on the verge of moving, so I was very much in a state of flux between 2008 and 2010. Ana Luca became one of the very first fair trade jewelers. I found out about that and did some research about that, but it wasn't on the cards for me at that moment because I was, like I said, I was in a state of flux. I was in between countries moving, but then my move to Belgium happened. And then I had to reestablish myself there. My workshop, I was already very much changing. So when I moved to Belgium, I started using citric acid baths instead of nitric acid. So I started replacing things in my workshop. I very quickly learned in the UK that you recycle everything. You take it to your crucibles, your paper, your emery paper, your files. Everything can get recycled and reused, and you bring it back to the refineries, and you get money from it. The refineries refine it. So it was always very much there. I started with recycling metal and working with recycled metals, but still that didn't go far enough for me. The transparency wasn't there. It was very much, the blockchain was very short. I couldn't prove it all the way along the line. It's very, very difficult still. It's very complex. The whole industry is very complex, and it also depends on your values. I'm not saying that recycling is wrong. Recycling is something that we've done for centuries because you don't throw away precious metals. So it's part and part of our system. It's always been there. We can, a famous example are the crowns of England. You go to visit the Tower of London, and you're on this conveyor belt going past all these crowns. And then all of a sudden there's a stand which says, "Crown no longer exists. Son did not like father's crown." And then you see the next, and it's the crown going, "Crown was remodeled using father's initial crown." So it's something that we've been doing for centuries. It's not innovative, it's not new. It's just we have to now put everything in cubicles and put wording on it because of with legislation, everything needs to be worded and documented, and it's still very difficult. And we still have a lot of work to do on wording and definitions, and we need a dictionary where everything is really clearly stated and clearly listed, but that's going to be a humongous job. We're trying. We're trying. We can only learn by trial and error and starting again. So, but I still didn't think that the recycling part did enough for the miners because it's still artisanal and small scale mining. There are about 45 to 50 million miners in that industry. And although it's only 20% of our global production, it is still the highest employment of the global production because it's not just the 45 to 50 million miners that are employed, it's also the 150 million people who are indirectly employed by the artisanal and small scale miners. So that is an industry that I really want to support. And because it's artisanal, small scale mining, I see it as slow mining. It's the slow side of our industry, and it's something that we can do responsibly because it's not on vast corporate companies. It's very much tangible. We can control what we mine, how deep we mine, how prospective mining is done. Diamonds for Peace, for example, they've taught their diamond miners to prospect responsibly, where the drilling hole is 20 centimeters diameter, a meter deep, which is something that is very minute destruction, where you can refill the hole. And the displacement of the earth is next to nothing because as soon as they see that there is no sediment with kimberlite, they put it back and do another one. And even trenching is taught to trench responsibly. It is tangible, it is doable, and it is workable to keep down the damage minimally and keep the miners earn money and earn a living. And because these blockchains are very short, they get paid correctly. They can ask the correct price. I think I became fair trade certified in 2016. But unfortunately, Fairtrade Belgium was a very, very small team. And by 2017, they dropped every fair trade jeweler very quickly. So it was a year and then that's it. So my journey for looking for something in the fair industry was continuating. So I found the ethical metalsmiths in the US who have recently rebranded since last summer. They are now called the Community for Ethical Jewelers. And so I became a member in 2018, and I also discovered Fairmined, and I became a Fairmined licensed brand, and I've been advocating Fairmined gold and silver ever since. I still do my remodeling because I love the fact that I get to take all these pieces, take them apart, melt them all down, rebuild them. And so I have two scopes. I have two models. I have the Fairmined and the responsible mining model, and I have my remodeling and transformation. I don't call it recycling. I really separate that because of the fact that recycling still isn't as transparent as it should be. We still have a lot of work to do on the recycling aspect.
Do you mind sharing a little bit more about what you know about, because you've done some research in this space?
Yeah, it is a topic that is very much discussed in the jewelry industry. And there is nothing wrong with recycling. Let me clarify that first. It is something that we do. It is part of our industry. You don't throw away metal. So we do recycle it because we do get money from it and it does go back in the industry. So yes, there is a recycling process. But in that process, a lot of the refineries don't state where exactly their sources come from. Now, one is 20% of metals that gets recycled at a recycling plant, at a refinery, comes from pawn shops. Now, any jeweler who has had a break-in, a robbery, a hold-up, or any customer been a victim of a robbery for jewelry knows that it goes to the pawn shops and the pawn shops sell it to the refineries. And that's very much close to home. Also, but a couple of years ago still, the LBMA, they actually state that even banks who buy ingots and the ingot of gold sits in their bank, if it's a day or 100 years, the moment they resell it, it becomes recycled gold because it changes hands and it's classed as second hand. So the definition isn't right. And that is why I differentiate between recycled, because for me, recycled is components that have already been used and are in broken articles, like from the dental industry, from the IT industry. Those are all recycled components which go to the refinery and get recycled. That is what I define personally. That's the way I see it. That's what recycling is. So that is also why I say remodeling, transformation, repurposing when I talk about customers' old gold that I recycle. For me, recycling, a lot of people see it as we recycle plastic, we recycle clothes, it gets shredded, paper, it all gets shredded and recycled and made into new stuff. And so it reduces the mountain. But it's not because we recycle that the mountain of demand for mining is diminished. We can see it now. The gold prices are going crazy. They are mounting. They've more than doubled in a year. And this induces more illegal mining. Illegal miners are often either jewelers or work with jewelers who then create jewelry from what they've mined. It gets sold to pawn shops, and the pawn shops can sell it on to the refineries. So the illegal mining also goes into the gold recycling. I'm not saying it's huge quantities because it's still, these are artisanal small scale miners. So it's 20% is artisanal small scale mining. And we don't know the exact percentage of that percentage, which are illegal miners. Again, it's a small percentage, but they are going up. And illegal mining is so dangerous. They work unprotected, bare hands, basic tools, often alone. And I've recently written an article on my blog about the illegal mining and what it entails with the gold prices going up. And if you do want to invest in gold, invest in jewelers who work responsibly, invest in Fairmined gold or fair trade gold, which is traceable. At least then you know that the miners are protected, they have insurance, they have protective gear. The safety, the health and safety is so much better and on a really high priority for the miners who are in the fair. You also have Peace Gold. So, there are initiatives where you can invest responsibly. I got really upset last summer to the extent where I could no longer sleep. I was anxious. I had stomach aches because I had friends thinking they were doing a good thing because I kept getting text messages every morning going, Saskia, I've invested in gold. And finally, I got so angry going, it's because of you that there are so many more deaths and so many more illegal miners that they finally stopped it because I was getting really upset because I didn't want to hear it yeah, because they're not investing in the right gold.
It's very important for anyone to realize that there are back doors and as you say, as demand is too high, mining will continue. And then it is our responsibility to fight for correct mining. Your commitment to ethical jewelry goes well beyond just buying Fairmined gold. You, for example, have visited yourself mining communities and tried to build relationships with miners. And could you tell us a little bit more about what inspired you to go and visit these mines and see for yourself what was going on?
So I went to visit Peru and Colombia with Fairmined organization. And the reason why I did that was because you can look it up, you can read it, you can go, yeah, this is it. And you can talk to people about it. But to actually experience it is a whole different ball game. It becomes tangible, it becomes real. It's not just something that I say, it's something that I've done, I've experienced, I've seen with my own eyes. And it was amazing to meet the miners who mine my gold, who mine my silver. It was amazing to hear their stories, to see how their lives have changed. And I found out so much more from these mine visits because it's not just fair mind, fair wages. People, communities exist from fair mind, and it goes so much more. I found out that the mines are circular. They don't, I mean, in Brussels, we complain about the fact that we have to have 4 bins to separate everything, and for people who have a garden, they have 5 bins. At the mines, you could eat your food off the floor. It was spotless. There was not even a cigarette butt in sight. And there were 9 or 10 bins. Everything was recycled, reused, repurposed. The water, because there is a vast amount of water use in mining, and they recuperate them in ponds, and the ponds cascade, so they clean them, and then it gets completely reused. They reuse the water. So there's a complete circularity to it. We also visited disused mines. So they had disused mines on their sites, which no longer had gold because mines only give gold between 5 and 20 years. And I say giving because it is the earth that is giving us this special metal to be able to use. And I think we need to be respectful of that as well. And so after the mine is given the gold, they do analysis to make sure that all their equipment is taken and nothing is left behind, and they refill it, and then they turn it into a green zone. So again, there is a reuse and repurpose and recycle of everything that they do on the mining sites. I also went to, now this is because I'm Fairmined certified brand, that I went to see the Fairmined mines. I thought that's a very important part of my story. I don't think you can be a Fairmined brand if you don't meet your suppliers. I've also met my wholesalers. I've met Desiree and Florian and Carmen from Fairever in Germany. Hopefully one day I'll be able to go to their offices, but so far I haven't been able to do that. But I have seen them at Inorienta, and so I thought it was important as well as part of that story and as part of the Fairmind family that you really need to go and see what it is that you're advocating, what it is that you stand for, what your principles, where that comes from. Does it go all the way through down the line, and how committed are the miners and the wholesalers to this? And I see that in Desiree and Florian and Carmen as well, the passion that they have for the fair mind, and they also supply fair trade. They do both. It's infectious. It's like a domino effect, you know. I just came back from Inorienta where I met you, and it is infectious. Truly Precious, for example, they gave a talk about what it is to be sustainable, and how we can stop the greenwashing within our sustainable communities. And the stories, the discussions just continued the whole weekend from that presentation. So it is very much an infectious thing, and very much a passion and a commitment from all of us who do sustainability and who are responsible in the way we work and in the way we source. And it is very important. And then I also support, I'm a Diamonds for Peace supporter. Um, and so again, I passionately really wanted to go and see Diamonds for Peace because I wanted to see where my money goes, what I am supporting, how the money gets distributed from the supporters who support Diamonds for Peace. And I went together with Mara Bragaia, who's an Italian jeweler in Milan. And the two of us went to Diamonds for Peace to Liberia, together with Chie, who is the founder from Diamonds for Peace. And so, yeah, so that was an amazing trip as well. It was wonderful to see how second incomes are generated to bring the diamond miners out of poverty because they live in extreme poverty. Most of them, or all of them, were when they started illegal miners. At some point during their mining career, they did own a diamond mining license. But if you consider that an administrative wage in Monrovia, which is the capital, is $300 a month. So you can imagine what they earn out living in the jungle, because that's where the mines are, near the jungle. And these diamond mining licenses, up until 2 years ago, were $150 a year. And the new government decided in 2025, in January, to go, let's put it up to $250 a year. So if your diamond mining miners can already not afford the 150, how are you going to help them by boosting it to 250? You're going to keep them suppressed. You're going to keep them depending on other supporters, as they call them, who are also probably people in the supply chain who don't know the value or the real value because they are also kept to a minimum knowledge of what value is of these diamonds. And so we now, I can proudly say, we now have 6 or 7 Diamonds for Peace miners who have their diamond mining license, who are now able to cut out some of the steps of these supporters and who are able to earn a better wage from when they sell their rough diamonds. So that was an amazing experience. I was there for 2 weeks. Great to sit in also on the workshops. They were doing workshops about mindset change because Diamonds for Peace are also coping or battling against generations of superstition. So diamonds are put in the ground by a female spirit. So women are not allowed on the mines because they are angering the female spirit. And so these are things Diamonds for Peace really wanted to work with communities who have women miners, who already have an open mindset to the fact that they allow women to mine as well and they work alongside them. So the mindset is already slowly changing on that aspect. So they really chose a criteria, very strict criteria, to work with mines where there was gender equality. And so they can build on that.
You're active in networks such as Fair Luxury, Truly Precious, you've mentioned giving a talk in Urgenta, Ethical Metalsmiths, who have changed their name very recently. For listeners who may not know these groups, can you talk more about their role, the role they play for you as a support network and within the wider jewelry ecosystem, what they can do, what their power is?
Knowledge and education, first of all. It's basically spreading the word. Ethical Metalsmiths, are the community for ethical jewelers, is a very big community. They're based in the States. They have a big board. They've got board members. They've got advisors. I'm an advisor, and I also write for The Source. So I write about 6 articles. We've got a new editor-in-chief, Andrea. She was, or she is, a consultant for Elle Hill. So, who is also very much active in the responsible and sustainability areas in the jewelry, in the high-end jewelry areas. And they're all jewelers or wholesalers or miners. I met Brian Cook, who is an amazing man. He's a philanthropist, entrepreneur, a miner, and he's very much also in the sustainability and responsibility. He lives between Brazil and America. I got the opportunity to meet him at Inorgenta. We had a cup of tea together. I was just in awe listening to him and his passion for what he does and for the mining in Brazil that he does and the support he gives to the miners and the mining communities. And he's got a lot of investment, heart and soul investment in the mining community, and he's also an active member. And so yeah, so that's that side. So we also have so you have programs for startups where jewelers, they have mentee mentor programs. They also have educators who are mostly jewelers teaching in jewelry schools at university level. So these are the community. This is the community of ethical jewelers in the States. So I'm a part of them, and I really get involved. And you can get as much or as little involved as you want. We share suppliers, we share knowledge, we share experiences. We also ask questions in a safe environment. And Fair Luxury is the same. We get to discuss, again, it's a handful of jewelers who are very much passionate about responsibility and about sustainability. And it's about creating awareness, first of all, within the industry, because we need to be able to discuss this in a safe place without being attacked, without being said, oh, but, you know, because that's not what we're there for. Like I said, with the recycled, I'm not there to criticize anyone who does use recycling. Because who knows, maybe I'm the one who's wrong and we'll see that in 20 years or 40 years or 100 years' time. We don't know this. It's only something we can try and we can advocate, and we can only do our best and grow and learn. And it's by learning and trying and failing and retrying that we learn and we improve and we grow from this. And it's in the responsible and sustainability side, as in the recycled side. We're working on transparency in the recycling. We need to support one another. We don't need to tear one another apart and give your opinions. I mean, I can speak from experience. From my source articles, I was very much slated really badly in some of the comments on something that I had written, because the jeweler who read it took it personally. And I was writing from my personal experience. And it does say that in the article, that it is from personal experience. And and it was on the recycled remodeling issue. So these communities that we have, I think they're very important. Firstly, within the jewelry trade, to be able to support one another, to be able to ask questions without being, shoot the messenger or shoot first, ask questions later. It's very much, these communities are here to be able to support us, to be able to grow together, to be able to learn, and also to learn how to communicate this to clients, to the consumer, to bring it to the broader public in a correct and transparent way. And I think they're support networks, basically.
If you're thinking about a sustainable future, is there perhaps one topic that you could pick that you'd really like to see resolution to, or
That is a very hard question, because I think that everything's linked. I would like everything to slow down, actually. And I think that's why I advocate artisanal and small scale mining. I think that's why my diamonds come from fishermen who dive off the coast of South Africa. I think that's why I support Diamonds for Peace, and why I'm a Fairmined certified brand, because it is all slow. It is slow mining, slow resourcing, and we need our earth to recover. And if we have, you can't recover from fast fashion and fast mining and everything by the tons. We need breathing space. I mean, we see that in the human value as well. Look at how many burnouts we have, because we are connected on WhatsApp, social media, on everybody has, everything is, we're we're constantly triggered by everything around us because the world is going so fast. We're doing everything has to be now. I mean, I know that lose customers. I had someone recently who said, "Oh, I want an engagement ring. This is my budget." And it was a big budget, and I came within that budget when I proposed three drawings. And then they went, "What's the delay?" And I went, "6 weeks approximately." And I didn't hear from them again because he wanted it for Valentine's Day, but he connected me 3 days before. So also the consumer value needs to slow down. We shouldn't have to have everything yesterday. It's nice the fact that, and that's where I think crafts and everything, not just jewelers, but woodworkers, ceramicists, people who build staircases and gargoyles and do all the facades. And I think it is such a nice industry. And I think the craft may be the solution to slow things down, that we reevaluate, that we relook at what works as slow. And especially now with AI coming up, everything is computer generated. I've made a conscious decision of using my social media, not deleting it, but using it as silent business cards. I think 3 times a year, I post 6 pictures in one week, and that's it. I don't do videos anymore. I refuse. I've basically stepped away from social media for my own durability. And it's given me peace of mind. It's given me more creativity because hanging on these social medias, they become addictive. You lose time with scrolling. All of a sudden you go, where did the last 3 hours go? Another thing, we are so much more connected on the internet these days that we forget about the fact that what we can't see is also destroying our planet. Because the more we invest in AI and get AI to do everything for us, and they're generating pictures, and they're generating videos, and they're generating our businesses, and I mean, the things that it can do is huge. But then the storage, I went on a sustainability IT course, and oh my God, that's when I stopped my social media. I post on LinkedIn once or twice a week, and that's it. Because actually, every time you share a story or you share a picture, it cascades onto other databases. It doesn't stay in the same database that you have. And a lot of people don't know this. So we're already scheduled to build 6 databases in Belgium alone. And you're thinking, but it's a tiny country. And these databases have to be next to water supplies because they have to cool, because the energy they use, the heat. So we have to use it consciously as well. We have to be aware of what we're doing and we need to slow down. We really do need to slow down.
In listening to Saskia, we're reminded that jewelry is never just an object. It's a part of a wider ecosystem of people, landscapes, histories, and responsibilities. Her work shows us that ethics is not merely an aspiration, but a daily practice, one shaped through magnifying all aspects of sourcing, building relationships with mining communities, and a willingness to engage with the difficult yet vital conversations and questions shaping the industry's future. Her commitment to Fairmined Gold, to community-led initiatives, and to advocacy groups pushing for structural change demonstrates how individual makers can become catalysts for collective transformation. Saskia's journey encourages all of us, jewelry artists, students, wearers of jewelry, to consider not only the beauty and the story of ideas behind the piece of jewelry, but the integrity of the path all of its components have traveled, and perhaps as well the speed at which they travel. Saskia, thank you for sharing your experience, your learnings, and your unwavering pursuit of a more equitable and accountable jewelry sector. Your work illustrates what's possible when craft and conscience collide.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Next month, I'll be joined by another guest, so watch this space to find out who it is. But for now, this was Sophie Boons for the BAJ podcast episode titled Fairmined with Saskia Shut. Thank you for listening and have a wonderful day.